It's Adam with Arcade Heroes, and I had meant to start this live stream a little sooner, but part came in for my Minecraft Dungeons arcade, which frustratingly did not fix it. I'm really, if I had any hair to pull out, I'd be pulling out what I had on that game. It's really frustrating. I've never come across a problem. It's with the joysticks on a 4-player Minecraft Dungeons arcade model. And I have to apologize in advance. I've been putting this off in the hopes that this blasted cough that I've been having for weeks would go away by now, but it just doesn't go away, and rather discuss this show before the month is over. But yeah, we'll get there. But got the chat up. We'll jump into Amusement Expo. For anybody who's new, who's never watched one of these live streams before of these arcade shows, so I'm Adam at Arcade Heroes, and I'm coming to you from my arcade in Salt Lake City, Utah. So there is a chance. I actually haven't had any customers in today at all. I'm in a mall, a dead mall. Surprisingly, it still has most tenancy it filled in, but I don't know how much longer that's going to continue on like this. But so I might have to stop at some point to help a customer or turn games on. I actually have most of my games off. That's why I'm in the dark here, just because I'm saving power. There's no point in wasting, hundreds of dollars on electricity when nobody's around to do anything, to even look in through the entrance there. Although I got a couple of guys looking right now, but they've got a bunch of food, and we don't allow food in here. I guess before getting started, looking at the chat here, Viper J, which one am I thinking of getting or still thinking about? So I technically did put in an order for a Pokemon pinball machine. The problem is they're telling me it's not going to be able to ship until September. Now maybe there's another source where I could get one that would get through a lot faster. And I did recently sell a Star Trek premium pinball machine to kind of help shore up the costs on that. But at the very least, September, it's like, well, I have enough time to get the rest of the money so I could just buy it outright instead of making payments. Otherwise, I don't really have plans to get anything just because I don't have the money. And the stuff with the partnership that I've been trying to get involved with so far hasn't really been going anywhere as I thought it would be. If that does go somewhere, then there's quite a few things from this show that I'd be grabbing, and including like Storm Racer 2, and I may be getting in the Caverns of Mars from Alan 1. As well as the Pong cocktail arcade table. But so far, nothing set in stone at this moment. But the bigger games, like in general, I mean, I've had people tell me before that they feel that I do run an FEC. In my humble opinion, it's not really an FEC. It's much more a traditional arcade. I mean, I can show you guys here. I do have videos where I've posted on my own arcade channel that show a tour of the place. I haven't done any in a little while. I know it's kind of hard to see anything here, especially in a small square. But, you know, I don't have any Ticket Redemption. It's a pretty traditional arcade as far as, like, I have old stuff, I have brand new stuff. The newest thing I would have here would probably be the Soda Slam. Sorry, I need a mute button here, or I need to be ready on mute for when I cough like that, so don't feel like I'm coughing in your face. But well, when it comes to Alan 1, they are actually local to me, and so out of all the arcade manufacturers out there, there are none where I could just literally go and visit their factory other than Alan 1, and that's where I've been able to test quite a few machines. It's like, technically that Soda Slam that's over there is on test. It's been here longer than what the test period is supposed to be for, but the Missile Command that I had on test, they took that to Vegas and it hasn't returned, and so yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, overall, when it comes to these giant FEC style games, it's like, yes, I do have the space to fit a lot of them in there. It's just I don't generally have the budget to afford putting a lot of these games in. And I don't know how everybody else feels about this. I mean, granted, I think at any time, everybody's always wanting to save more money instead of spending more money. And with the almost near collapse, not total collapse, but the drawback on VR games is causing it so that we don't have quite as many games that are over the $50,000 threshold or even the $40,000 threshold. I mean, there still are some expensive games out there, but yeah, gotta wait and see. And so companies like Alan 1 and Exa-Arcadia and like DSM Arcade, and some other indie developers, you could call them. I mean, I know like both Alan 1 and Exa don't consider themselves to be indie developers, but I'm just thinking, like, if you saw the stuff that Indie Arcade Wave posted from MagFest, there was quite a few indie arcade developments. Those would be generally under $10,000. I mean, there are things out there. It's just you have to do a bit of searching for them. And I guess the other problem is, too, is in a lot of cases, these games don't earn super well. And so they don't necessarily have a year ROI. Now, what does have a year ROI that's under $10,000 are crane machines. And so why is it that the industry's become so obsessed with cranes lately? It's because they're super cheap, especially if you buy direct from China, which a lot of operators are doing. And then even if they break down in, say, like 6 months or a year, they're going to pay themselves off just because people are going so crazy about crane machines. Personally, I don't care about crane machines. I've always found it annoying when I've had to do sales and stuff like that on trying to distinguish crane machines from one another, because usually there's no difference here. They're just, maybe in the aesthetics as far as not just the artwork, but maybe like the cabinet design. But it's like a crane machine's a crane machine with some exceptions out there. But for the most part, yeah. And so yeah, like I'm seeing in chat, you probably have a place near you. I know here where I'm at in Salt Lake City also has these crane or clockades that are popping up, or it's just those. I highly doubt that those that's going to be something that's going to last for a long, long time. But anyways, now one thing that did annoy me at Amusement Expo is that I lost my voice starting on the first day. So don't be surprised if that happens here. I'll try not to. I'm going to try not to yell. But I may try to cut myself short because I like to talk too much, I guess. But let's get into the news. So what's Amusement Expo, in case you're new here? It was a trade show that's held every spring, usually about the exact same week in March, like the week of the 27th, right when March Madness is happening, is when you tend to have Amusement Expo happening as well. Sorry. And they've been doing this for a very long time. It's organized by a couple of organizations known as the AMOA and the AAMA. And why I'm here on the Replay magazine website is because they have some news where they covered this stuff in some detail. And so like right here, the AMOA and the AAMA, during the shows, they will announce winners of different awards, and they've been doing these Lifetime Achievement Awards. And so as you can see here, this year, Eugene Jarvis, the man, the myth, the legend, won the Lifetime Achievement Award from the AAMA. And so a very well-deserved award. If you don't know who Eugene Jarvis is, then I guess do some searching online. But there were some other awards given out. The Manufacturer of the Year, these are all awards they give out every year. I can't remember off the top of my head who won last year. But Manufacturer of the Year was Bandai Namco Amusement America. Distributor of the Year was Schaefer Distributing. Supplier of the Year, this would be like supplying toys and things. Rhode Island Novelty. Allied Member of the Year, I'm not sure what that is referring to, was Pinnacle Entertainment. And then the FEC Location of the Year was Star Lanes Polaris in Columbus, Ohio. And so those were your main winners. And they also have a Hall of Fame where they hand out different awards. And so the class of 2026 includes Al Bettelman, David Cohen, Larry DeMar. That might be a name that you would be familiar with if you're into retro arcades at all, since he was involved in the Vid Kids with Eugene Jarvis. Hi. How can I help you? Okay. All right. No problem. Gotcha. I'll get some coins candidates for you. Redeem. Click that, confirm. Okay, we're all good to go. Now, a lot of the games are off. Anything you guys want to play, let me know. I can turn it on, but let them know not to put any coins in anything that's either off or still starting up. They want to wait until it shows the gameplay on the screen.
Hay muchos que están apagados, ¿ok? Entonces, si quieres jugar uno, no pongas el dinero hasta que tú digas él que tú quieres jugar ese juego, ¿ok? ¿Ok? ¿Entienden? Mire, hay estos.
So each one of these is a number of 7, so it says it's 6 tokens each. I can just give you.
Yeah. ¿Cómo se llama? Arcade. ¿Cómo se llama el pase? Oh, ¿no has hecho todavía? Pero si está apagado, déjame ayudar a...
Okay, be right back. I'm going to go turn on some games.
Okay, okay. Entonces sí está tu correo. ¿Está prendido? Okay, sí. Get out. Papi tiene todos.
Okay. At least from what I've been told in the past, so you guys can't really hear the games on the thing, so it's just me that can hear them. Let's zoom in here. So yeah, Amusement Expo happens every year in March, generally in Las Vegas. It's happened in other places in the country before. In fact, in 2020 it happened in New Orleans. And it was right as I was getting off the plane is when all the lockdowns started hitting everywhere. That was fun. But at least I was able to enjoy New Orleans before all that happened and everything. But now, I've been attending Amusement Expo, I think, since 2007. Now, obviously, the first time I went to the show is like, wow, there's lots of cool new arcade games here. And I recall, I think in 2008, 2009-ish, around there, it seemed like there would be a few new games that would pop up. But it was around the 2010 or so where IAAPA started really gaining in prominence, and IAAPA is another trade show, but we generally call IAAPA like the E3 or the Super Bowl of. How many did they put in? Let me take a look. That's okay. It happens. Okay. All right. Sorry, where was I at? I think I was talking about IAAPA, Amusement Expo. Yeah. So, like, IAAPA had it has become, throughout the 2010s up until very recently, IAAPA would be where you'd see most of the new announcements of games. And throughout the year, there have been events like Bowl Expo or IAAPA Expo Europe, where on occasion there's been a new announcement there, or even over in the Chinese trade shows, there's a couple. One of them is called the AAA Expo, which happens in May. There's another one, GTI Asia China Expo, where there's often a lot of new stuff that's shown in China. But Amusement Expo, up until last year, oftentimes wouldn't have these brand new game announcements. There might be a couple of new redemption pieces, but for video games, there might be one new thing for a very long time. And so for a lot of people, when I've talked to them about Amusement Expo, or when they, do you want to go to Amusement Expo this year? Like, they never have anything new there. Well, from what I could count, I think it was 20 new video game projects that popped up at this show, and then 2 redemption ones. Again, I don't really pay attention to crane machines and coin pushers very much. But those, I think that would bring it up to at least 22, if not a little bit higher than that. I guess kind of same thing with boxing machines and pool tables and stuff like that. I just don't really follow it super closely. Although boxing machines do tend to do pretty well out there. Sometimes they become like the #1 games in an arcade. But let's get into it. As usual, we like to cover our advertisers first and go from there. Okay, that's muted. So with Raw Thrills, unfortunately, they didn't have anything that we hadn't seen before, not even like new software that we hadn't seen before. There was some hope that they might show off their newest version of Big Buck Hunter Reloaded with the Mountain Goat, but that they just had a poster of it at the show. They did not actually show it because it's not ready yet, but they said to be launching this spring. Now, I guess one thing I forgot to mention is that this show, in a lot of the videos you'd be seeing, like this one, you won't notice it because this was filmed like right after the show opened. This year's attendance was down by about 300. A lot of that was caused by, there was a major storm out in the Midwest, and it did massive disruption with flights on top of the partial U.S. government shutdown, which was causing and still causing long lines at the airports and stuff. Now, fortunately for me, I was through my local airport here in like 5 minutes. It was actually one of the shortest times I've gone through. And then even in Vegas, when I was leaving, it was actually pretty good. So I guess I just got through at the right time of day. But because attendance was down, some of the videos that I have, the booths are actually kind of sparse. Some of them don't even show anybody around at all, and and everything. But anyways, so when it comes to Raw Thrills, even though they didn't have anything we hadn't seen before, for some people that do attend Amusement Expo, like say if you didn't get a chance to go to IAAPA, this is a great place to go and check out product that you might have missed and consider it. Now, to the question earlier on, it's like, what would you get? If money were no object and I could get whatever I wanted, Top Gun would be on my list. Godzilla, Kaiju Wars DX would definitely be on my list. I already have a Big Buck Hunter Reloaded, but it's been having nonstop issues. Something I talked with Eugene Jarvis about. I still need to get it fixed. As I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, part of the delay today was in Minecraft Dungeons. I mean, funny enough, I had nobody in for hours, and then as soon as I start the stream, suddenly people come in. So I guess I need to live stream more often so that I can get more business. Although these ones that came in used a coupon, so I'm making nothing off of them. So they... That I've heard from some operators that NBA Superstars started off really poorly, but it's improved a lot since they first got it. With the software updates and stuff, more people have been gone out and playing it. So I don't know what the numbers are on it, but there's that. I guess one of these days I should get a Halo Fire Team Raven. That is one I've wanted to have before. But when Minecraft Dungeons Arcade, I keep getting people pestering me about, where's your chicken jockey video? I mean, funny enough, when I did a video about Minecraft cards in the past, nobody watched it. But I just got this in today. So I do now have the chicken jockey card on the video. You can see on the screen they did a giant version. I guess that'd be kind of cool to have too. But it does have this gold foil look to it. I don't know how rare these are exactly, although on the back it does say that they are legendary. So I assume that means that there's not very many of them in each box. I haven't really gone through this and taken a look yet to see, like, count how many chicken jockeys are there. But that's available now. And then we saw the other stuff that they've had out for a while. They are working on some other stuff. Every one of these manufacturers is working on something else that's new. So if you, in the event that you're disappointed that they didn't bring anything new to the show, don't worry, they're still working on something. We just don't know when we'll see it next. But there are some things coming to Dave and Buster's this summer, and so don't worry, we'll be seeing some stuff there soon. Another advertiser on our site, they've been leaning a lot more into stuff that we generally don't cover on Arcade Heroes. That would be redemption games. As I've explained before, in case you've missed this explanation, I don't cover redemption games. I mean, yes, I have to admit, on a personal level, I just don't really care for them. Even as a kid, I didn't care. I didn't play redemption games. I mean, I do understand their importance in the industry because they do make a ton of money. In some cases, that they are the ones that pay the bills. But because of that, it's like there's not really a need to cover redemption games in detail on Arcade Heroes. To me, the ones that need the signal boost are the video games, where there's still that persistent idea out there that, oh, video arcades are dead and that they don't exist anymore and that it's just ticket redemption everywhere. And that's not the case. But there are companies that do focus more on redemption, as those sell really well, and Touch Magics is one of those. They debuted 3 new redemption games at IAAPA, and those were here. So they didn't have anything new at the show, just showing those off again. If you had missed IAAPA, this gave you a chance to check their stuff out. Alan 1, we wrote quite a bit of stuff about this. By the way, I don't think I mentioned this, but if you go to arcadeheroes.com right now, the post that's at the top of the site, it's this whole rundown of Amusement Expo. Yeah.
My sister wants to play a game, but the machine just keeps returning the code.
Which game?
It's
The My My or the Step Maniacs? Okay, gotta fix another game. Weirdly enough, I almost never have issues when it's busy, but today all of a sudden, like, everything they're having an issue. was from the kid putting in quarters instead of tokens. Okay. Let's see, Alan 1. And so, as I mentioned, Alan 1 is local to me. They've been going to Amusement Expo since 2023. They started off with a game like Joust called Avian Nights. And then they got an Atari license to do all the Atari Recharged games, which were essentially remakes of a lot of Atari's classic stuff. Most of them arcade machines, but not all of them. A few of them were only released to console, including 2 of the games that they brought to this show. And from their booth video, you can see a lot of those classics over there. Don't know why they go away, you pause symbol. And so they did have all those games. All these are in production, except for the newest ones that we'll get to in a moment. But they had the new version of Liquid Death, which this was at IAAPA, but it had a different artwork face. And so this is the final production artwork. And this and the Dr. Pepper both have these can joysticks. And so like the prototype Soda Slam that I have has regular joysticks on it. The cans are a bit cooler in my opinion. But this is actually a modified version of Perfect Pour by DSM Arcade, which was at Amusement Expo. It had Perfect Pour Pabst Blue Ribbon Edition at the AVS Company's booth. And I've told this story many times, but it seems like a lot of people don't know this, but they think that Icy Slush Rush was first. Perfect Pour is the originator of the idea of filling the cups like this. And they actually licensed Perfect Pour out to Alan 1, who created Soda Slam, and then they developed Dr. Pepper Soda Slam and Liquid Death. But note, it's not called Liquid Death Soda Slam, it's just Liquid Death, as apparently that's what Liquid Death wanted to call it, which in my opinion doesn't really help with searching things up when you're trying to find that specific game. But anyways, let's see, Pong, Atari, the electromechanical tables are back through Alan 1, so they released these coffee table ones, exact same thing as what was released years ago. Just some small differences on the artwork, but otherwise like the gameplay and the mechanics inside are all the same. They released those for Christmas, in time for Christmas last year, and then at the show they introduced the Pong cocktail arcade unit. Now I think on this video I said something incorrect, which at the time I thought was correct, but I learned afterward is not. Originally these cocktail arcade units, you could adjust the height, but apparently that's no longer the case. Now they're just fixed height as to what they are, but they do have cup holders and stuff, so they're good for bar, arcades, lounges, stuff like that. And then, like I said, there were the, there's Butts on Things, crane machines. Speaking of cranes, like this is one of the few new concepts in cranes where like there's nothing different about the machine itself, but the toys inside are based on the Butts on Things art, which I had not heard of until Alan 1 came along with that. But let me catch up on the chat here. So yeah, we'll get into Exa-Arcadia in a moment. Belmont's Apprentice, when you say do they distro to places like Round 1, are you talking about Exa-Arcadia or are you talking about somebody else? I assume you're talking about Exa-Arcadia there, but yeah, we'll get into them in a moment, don't worry. Now, as I pointed out in this video here, the 3 new releases, so this will be 3 new video games. Hi. Do you want to buy tokens? Yes. Okay. Here you go. Thank you. Find some. Here you go. Thanks. You're welcome. Thank you. Okay, yeah, the Exa. Yeah, I'll get into them in a moment here. But when it comes to brand new games at the show, so it's like there's the Atari Pong cocktail table, which had not been at IAAPA and had been off the market for 3-4 years. I guess technically it's not new in the sense that it's been done before. But then there were these 3 new games based on the Atari Recharged titles: Caverns of Mars, Breakout, and Yars. Now, Breakout is probably the one with the biggest name out of all of them, just because it's Breakout. It originated the whole brick breaker concept, although I guess technically there was a game called Clean Sweep from 1974, which was very similar in nature, but not exactly like Breakout was. That's autistic nerdery there. But for both Caverns of Mars and Yars, this is the first time that those games have ever appeared in arcades. Now, given that both of those games originally came out in 1981, they were heavily influenced by arcade culture, arcade game design elements. I mean, Caverns of Mars was a scrolling shoot-'em-up in a cave, and Yars was essentially Star Castle. In fact, Yars Revenge, which I played a lot as a kid, started off as a port to the Atari 2600 of Cinematronics' Star Castle. It's just trying to port a vector game to the Atari 2600 was always kind of a fool's errand. And so the creator, Howard Scott Warshaw, who is more famously known for his work on E.T. the Extraterrestrial, he redesigned Star Castle to become Yars Revenge. It's just Atari themselves have never really been good at handling a lot of their classic IP in an interesting way, say like how Nintendo does. Like Nintendo's reinvented Mario and Zelda and Metroid and Star Fox all these different times, but Atari just never really seemed to figure out what to do with a lot of that stuff until they tried these Recharged games. Now, as a disclaimer, I have been able to play test these and offer suggestions as to how to improve the game. What I've often done is been suggesting restoring elements that, for some reason, Atari removed them from the Recharged versions, and they were elements that I think made them better games. And so for the most part, a lot of those suggestions that I had for Caverns of Mars and some that I had for Yars were implemented in there. Not as many in Breakout, but still, I guess I could say I'm involved in some degree on the development of these games, but I'm not like in their coding or anything like that. But the main interest for these 3 games is that they use the Pepper's Ghost effect, which is where you put a monitor flat down and then you reflect the image off the glass, and then it creates this 3D-like effect. Now, as you saw in a moment ago on the video there, what Alan One is doing differently from most other uses of this effect is they're using 2 monitors. And so in the background, instead of it being a painted background that's static, they actually have another monitor, and it's lined up perfectly with the reflected monitor. But that background, the back monitor is just showing the background itself, whereas the reflection is showing the foreground objects. Now, one suggestion that I sent to them after the show, because in looking at them, this is the first time that I saw them, was that Breakout and Yars, the effect was, the 3D depth was not quite as strong or prevalent in those instances. It was far more prevalent in Caverns of Mars. And so my suggestion was to come up with different types of backgrounds that would create a stronger depth effect. So we'll see what happens with those. I guess one thing to note about Yars Revenge or Yars Recharged is that this is the first time we'll have seen a twin stick shooter in quite a while. Now, the reason why that is, like, yes, the original Atari 2600 version was not a twin stick shooter, but when Atari did the Recharged version for consoles, they turned it into a twin stick shooter. At first, I didn't really like that, but it grew on me. And given that it's really a shoot-'em-up style game, and there's a lot more bullets on the screen than there were before, there's a lot more things happening than in the original 2600 version, it actually makes sense, and I don't really have a problem with it. Although the sticks that we're seeing at Amusement Expo are not the final ones. I didn't really like them myself. They were way too loose. Felt like they were going to break. But as I was informed, these were not the final either. But another thing is to point out about all these Recharged games. In fact, most of these, except for the Soda Slam type games, all of these are below $10,000. And the Recharged games, I think, are around $6,000 Depends on the version. Like some of the older models could get down to like 5,000 or something, I think. But another thing to keep in mind is, and I can know this because I've been able to see with the QA testing, play testing side of things, and also giving suggestions, is that these are not just quick and dirty ports of the $10 recharged games over to and throwing it into an arcade cabinet. There are actually a bunch of differences on every single one of the games, and so it does depend on which one. Like Breakout, there's not a whole lot you can do there, but there are still some differences that you can actually tell on the screen what there are. Now, another thing to note with Allen 1 before we move on is that they have an app called the Major League Esports, or MES app. It's something you can get on your Android or iOS phone devices. And this allows you to track your scores, but also participate in tournaments and earn league points. And the top 8 league point players over the year, and it could really be anybody, they get flown into wherever the tournament is at, and they get to compete for thousands of dollars in cash prizes. Here's a photo showing all 8 of the players from this year. The 3 guys in the center are the ones who won the big money. And so Yorkie's TV, I believe he has a YouTube channel as well. He won $5,000 from that, from just playing classic arcade games, or new classic arcade games, I guess. And then I think it was Luxmatic got 2nd place, and Retroman 21 got 3rd place. So congratulations to those guys. But this was the 3rd annual World Championship for MES that was held at Amusement Expo. Previously, it had been held in Utah. I already feel myself losing my voice because now it's noisy in here, and I feel like I'm in a trade show. Hooray. Now, for another big announcement or probably one of the biggest announcements that happened at the show, was Blue Motion Games. Now, back at IAAPA, they let me know that I'd want to go to Amusement Expo because there would be a John Wick game unveiled there. And so at 11 o'clock, they held this press conference. And now I didn't have access to the microphone. I don't know where they had that connected to, so that's why you can't really hear it. There were multiple cameras there, so you see there. So I'm not sure if they've posted that somewhere yet. But this is where they unveiled John Wick. And now, as is a disclaimer that's important to note for a lot of stuff that we're going to talk about today, is these are early prototypes. These are not the final production models, so don't make your final judgment on what the game is like yet. In fact, I mean, it's still fine to point out things that you would like to see implemented in the final game, but this has a motion seat. I do realize that in this video I did not capture that. I do have another video with some motion. I just haven't got a chance to really edit that yet. I guess let me jump ahead to where there is some gameplay. And so, again, this is an early version of the gameplay. You can kind of see the guys swaying back and forth. That's from the motion seat. There's 3 actuators in the seat, which is, I guess, a significant thing with motion games. You do have to shoot off screen to reload. There's bonuses like shooting the coins. Will give you bonus points as well. The guns will change in the final. They'll look more realistic. Instead of being golden guns, they'll have more of a gray-black look to them. And there's also multiple paths you can take. I think this depends on what you shoot in the game will change your path. So like there in the video, there was a coin that they missed shooting, so perhaps if they shot that, it would change their path in the game. I recommended to them that they borrow an idea from House of the Dead, and at the end of each level show you a map of the route that you took, but then you could also see the places you missed. Now, we ran an article on Arcade Heroes right as this press conference took place that had a bunch of details as well, so you can always go and check that out on arcadeheroes.com. But the big news was that this would be rolling out in May to all Dave & Buster's in North America. And then it will be available to places outside of the United States. like Canada and Europe and South America. There's venues there, FECs there, that if they want to, they can buy it. I don't know what the price is on it. But for North America, it's going to be a Dave & Buster's exclusive, at least through the summer. But we'll announce, we'll share the news once that is announced as to being available to everybody else. But I guess some other things, this has wind effects, it has the motion effects. The car on the back will change from what was there at the show, although I guess in this video I didn't really show it much. Just, yeah, right here, that was a very early prototype, not the final production shell to it. But out of everything that I filmed and shared at the show, this has got one of the most views, which I guess isn't super surprising. Now, I also do have to thank Blue Motion for inviting me to come into the John Wick experience. I mean, I'm not invited to stuff very often at these shows. It's actually kind of rare. There's plenty of times where I just have to figure out something to do myself after a show, and I'll go eat somewhere else. Now, sometimes there are people that invite me to dinner and whatnot, and then I always thank them for that. But for the most part, I'm not usually going and checking out things like this after every show. But they invited me and plenty of others. I met people from Triotech, and I think there were some others from some other companies who were invited to go to the John Wick experience, which is over at Area 15 in Las Vegas, and got to go through that. It was pretty cool. I got to go on the Star Trek experience a long time ago. Hi. Yeah, use pinballs. Well, that's if you want to buy one. Here you go. Yep. So back when I went to Amusement Expo, I think 2008 or so, I went to the Star Trek experience at the Westgate, and I think that was the last year where they did it. It was kind of similar to that, but just updated. The actors in it were fantastic. It's kind of like part live stage play, the interactive stage play, part escape room, part video game. There is an instance where you go into this big room and they do projection maps on the wall, and you pick up a gun and you shoot at bad guys. Overall, it was pretty cool. So if you're ever in the area, I don't know how much it costs, but still worth it to me. I mean, sure, I say that because it was for free, but I would have paid for it. And I've only ever seen the first John Wick. I think maybe I've seen the second one, but I haven't seen the third and the fourth one. All right, let's get to the other exhibitors. So we'll be getting to Exa-Arcadia here soon. Don't worry. Now, surprisingly, the next game that got a lot of attention, or I think it's gotten the most attention out of all the videos that I've posted, except for, like, John Wick was right ahead of it, and then it was this game. But at the Adrenaline Amusements booth, I mean, they've been a company that usually has a mixture of redemption games, videmption games, and regular video games. Like, one redemption game that they debuted at IAAPA was Back to the Future, which is really just a reskin of their old Spinner Frenzy game. And they have stuff like Hungry Hungry Hippos and the Duck Race one. But the thing of most interest at this show would have been the Disney Speedstorm arcade, which is taking the Gameloft racing game and putting it into an arcade format. And now I've never played it on mobile or consoles, so I don't know exactly how many differences exist, other than the very obvious one is the card system. Now, thanks to Jeff at Adrenaline, I did find out after filming this that the cards are not needed for the game to work. So, like on something like Minecraft Dungeons Arcade or Injustice Arcade, the game will not work if it's out of cards. But in the case of Disney Speedstorm, no. If it runs out of cards, you're okay.
As for now, it just took her forever to get it activated.
So just a single one.
It's like more effort than we anticipated.
That's okay. There you go. You're welcome. So as you can see here, when you first start, if you want to, you can buy a card. You put in more credits, however many it is that the location says a card costs. Which, funny enough, I remember. Seems to me like Injustice Arcade allowed you to do that. I don't know if it still does afterwards, but yeah, I'm pretty sure you can or could do that. But you either get a card by buying it here at the beginning, or you play through a cup, which is 3 races. You don't even have to win the cup. You can fail at all of them. But as long as you play through a cup, then it'll give you a card as well. But at least in this version of the software, I don't know if this will change. There was only 2 characters that you could pick and race as. And then there were other costumes that you can get. And so the cards will have both characters as well as new costumes. And then you just put it in the scanner, and then it, excuse me, unlocks that for you. Now, they will change the position of the scanner as well as the card dispenser for the final, which they were telling me was May, that they're hoping to have this begin shipping. That might change due to factors that generally aren't public. You know, manufacturing delays and whatnot. But yeah, there seems to be a strong desire for stuff like this. And I talked about this in a video for the LBX Collective, a podcast that I do fairly regularly, usually weekly, where so at the moment, Mario Kart Arcade GP DX is kind of the only racer out there that's really tailored to kids. But the real problem with it is that if you are a location that wants to get one, the waiting list is almost a year long. Like, I was told at the show from Betson that if I ordered one right now, it wouldn't arrive until February 2027. And in my personal view, that should be unacceptable. Why Bandai Namco is taking so long, why they don't hire more people to manufacture more of those units, I don't know. There might be some actual business reasons and whatnot as to why they're not doing that. And I'm sure there's some legitimate reasons, although it still feels like there has to be ways for them to reduce the amount of lead time on waiting for something, because that's just a bit ridiculous, and again, in my opinion. Now, Mario Kart Arcade GP DX is one of the longest in production arcade games in history because it came out in 2013. But it's leaving the door, because of this, it's leaving the door open for others to jump in and essentially take that money. And so, and that is the thing too, Ted. In the past, I have been told that they were hiring more people to help with that, but I just don't know what happened there. Maybe they got put onto other stuff, or maybe demand just went up even higher. But who knows? Maybe demand will diminish where you have stuff like this, because again, to me, Namco is allowing their competitors to come in and take advantage of this situation because there is a lot of interest in this Disney Speedstorm. I heard people talking about it at the show. Obviously, we were seeing a lot of views from it as well, but there's that. But then there's another game which we'll get into. Well, I might as well bring it up now. Since we're really on the subject, and that is on the other end, Andamiro USA. They revealed some months ago that there would be Nickelodeon Kart Racers Arcade. And so obviously using the Nickelodeon IP instead of the Disney IP. I would assume that the Disney IP is slightly stronger, slightly more recognizable characters. Like, I know when I was mentioning in the video, I got one of the characters wrong. I think I said Jimmy Neutron or I said Johnny Neutron instead of Jimmy Neutron or something like that. Because, yeah, some of those things I never watched at Nickelodeon. But a lot of the Disney characters, they've been around for a long time. But it's like, yeah, I can look at this screen, and there are some characters on here I do not know. And just, like, obviously I know the Ninja Turtles, and that's what I picked. Or I know Garfield, I know Invader Zim, know SpongeBob, even though I never watched SpongeBob. But I know Avatar The Last Airbender himself, but I'm guessing the character next to him is from that same series, but I've never watched it, so I don't know. But, yep, you're welcome. Thanks for coming in. Okay, with these customers leaving, I'm actually going to go turn off some games really quick, just because I haven't had anybody else in, so I'm not going to waste the power. So be right back. Okay, that makes things slightly less noisy, at least on my end. But as I was saying, at least my assumption, and I could be wrong, is that the Disney IP is stronger with kids and adults. Maybe, I don't know, maybe not on the kids side, but at least with the adult side. But that's the thing about kid-tainment type arcade games, is that the brilliance in using some of this IP is that it bridges generational gaps. And so it's like I said, like I do recognize some of the characters in Nickelodeon Kart Racers Arcade. I recognize all the characters in the Disney game. And so you actually do see a lot of adults playing these kid games. And at the show, it was mainly, there's not a whole lot of kids that come to these, but I saw plenty of adults playing both games. But Nickelodeon Kart Racers Arcade, what it has going for it, aside from it has Kart in the name, so that's obviously going right after Mario Kart. Has a lot of the same sort of design tropes that you find in Mario Kart or karting style games, but so does Disney Speedstorm Arcade. There's boosts, there's items that you can use to attack your opponents. One thing that was confusing to me when I first filmed this, but I later learned what was going on, was that the brake pedal is not really a brake pedal, it's a jump pedal. It's just the producer of the game was there, and she told me that their artist actually had some family emergencies that took place, and he was unable to get the imagery for explaining things like what the jump pedal is, what it does, and before they were able to get to the show. And so that's why it's not stated here, but it did confuse me while I was playing. And so when it tells you to jump, I was like, I'm pushing all this stuff, and I didn't think to just try the brake pedal instead. But overall, it's a fun game, obviously based on the Nickelodeon Kart Racers, I think 3, that's available on consoles. Just the only thing that there was somebody else that also brought this up too, and I had noticed it, is like this part, it's not apparent, but there's other parts where for some reason it feels like you're not moving very fast. And I brought this up to the producer as well, where it's like, it seems like you need to increase the sense of speed in the game. And so if they can do that, then I think it'll be just fine. But another thing that wasn't explained in this build, but it will be explained in the final, is you do want to actually get slimed, as that's what essentially builds your boost meter. They call it skill meter, but it's essentially just a boost with a specific animation that's different for each character. And so another thing they explained to me that they did change from the console versions is that they greatly reduced the number of items that are in the game, because I guess the console version has quite a few, but they decided not to confuse people and to bring that down to something like, I can't remember if it was like 8 or 10 items instead of however many dozens it is. But yeah, so hey Jason, how's it going? So yeah, it is a port of that console game. Again, I think it was Nickelodeon Kart Racers Slime Speedway, which is the third one. But yeah, it's like I'm what I guess you call a zennial, where I don't know who came up with the arbitrary dates as to when a generation begins and ends, but I fall into that weird area where it's like Gen X, or at least when I was growing up, before anybody came out with the term millennials, it was called Gen X. But then at some point, somebody out there, they, them, whoever them is, decided that I was a millennial. But a lot of people around my age group call ourselves zennials, which starts with a Z. But so it's like some of them I recognize, some of them I don't. But anyways, the reason why I skipped ahead is because like both Andamiro and both Adrenaline have recognized, maybe a little late, maybe they should have done this a few years ago, because I've been hearing about these issues with the production of Mario Kart for a few years already, probably about 4 years, I think. There's one of the items where it just covers the screen. Instead of the squid ink from Mario Kart, it's a big hand. But jumping on to the kid racer thing, because again, the brilliant thing about having a kid racer is that it appeals to people of all ages instead of just one age demographic, and they can earn really well. Now, out of these two, it's like Disney Speedstorm has the cards, it has a motion base, it has the giant screen, it has the height. Now, that is an issue for some venues that don't have high ceilings. Like where I'm sitting at right now, I think it's like 13, 14 feet tall. So it's like I can fit in tall games. But there's lots of locations that cannot. And it's sometimes it's not even that being the problem. It's, let's say, like there's a lot of places out there that have really old buildings where it's something like a very narrow doorway, like a 30-inch or a 28-inch doorway. And so you just can't fit some of these things in, even when they're broken down into pieces. And maybe there's some buildings where because it's like from the 1800s, like the local city will not allow you to, knock down a wall and put in a giant garage door or something like that. Or there's some other ordinance that keeps you from doing that. And so like that is a problem with having these games that are just so huge that you do need, giant elephant doors to be able to get them into the facility in the first place. But at least, again, where I'm at, I really haven't had that problem. But it is an issue out there. And so, like, that's in a place where Nickelodeon Kart Racers has a distinct advantage. It's not a motion game. And I asked about this, and the producer told me that she is in one of these, her development crew, they're in one of these buildings that is, like, from the 1800s or something, I think in Maryland. And she was saying that, yes, this Nickelodeon broken down can fit through a narrow doorway, something like a 31-inch doorway, whereas it's highly doubtful that Disney Speedstorm will be able to fit that. But then that also goes down to the price. I don't remember hearing a price for Disney Speedstorm Arcade, but it's obviously going to be a bit high, given the size of the screen, given the motion base and the IP, all that stuff. But Nickelodeon Kart Racers, I think they were saying 9,000 to 10,000, somewhere around there. It's like if they could get it under 10,000, that would be great. That used to be where racers were as far as how much they would cost. But since 2020, they just really, nothing's been that cost, at least on racing games. Like even Sega's Drone Racing Genesis game, that was like $12,000, $13,000. Now, I could also mention that Andamiro did have a new How to Train Your Dragon pusher pachinko sort of game, redemption thing there too. That's in the booth tour video, as is more footage of Nickelodeon Kart Racers Arcade, in case you want to watch that. But this is also intended to start shipping around May. So be interested. Once May, you're going to have John Wick. We're going to have Nickelodeon Kart Racers. We're going to have Disney Speedstorm. I think there's a couple of other things that are also going to start shipping around that time. So going to be an interesting summer. But those guys are definitely taking aim at Mario Kart Arcade. Now, backtracking just a little bit, we have Amusement Source International. This is run by Corey Haynes. He used to be the CEO of GameWorks. He also used to work for Dave & Buster's in their C-suite. He also has hired people that have worked at Dave & Buster's in the C-suite as well, I believe. And so they know what they're doing there, and they've been focusing on imports of different games, mostly from China, sometimes from Europe. But here's a game that was at IAAPA, but it was so hidden I never saw it, even a glance of it. But it's essentially a new style of beer pong game, but without the beer pong cups. And sorry, I guess, to the influencer who was recording that. I don't know who it was there exactly, but yeah, you just throw the balls and you get them over the sensors, and the gust of wind will keep them up in the air. Hi, how's it going? You can use cash or card, whatever works.
The machines or?
Well, the machines use tokens, and so you can buy the tokens using cash or card.
Can I buy?
And so there's a quick price guide.
Can I get like $10 of it?
Sure. Cash or card.
Card.
Okay. Go ahead, tap insert or swipe. $5. There's 10. You're welcome. And if there's anything that's off that you guys want to play, just let me know. I can turn it on for you.
Okay.
Thanks. So, as you've been seeing here, they do have a few video games. I believe all of these video games can be set to vend tickets, or they can just be played as straight games. In my humble opinion, unless a game is made specifically for tickets, it's kind of pointless to have tickets on them, just because the type of play that ticket gaming needs is supposed to be extremely brief, no depth to it whatsoever. The game needs to be over in like 10 to 30 seconds, and that's another reason why I don't personally care for them. But again, I guess that's another issue. But as you've seen, they had quite a few of these games here. Some of them from Ace Amusements, which were not at the IAAPA booth for Amusement Source then, but they were at the Ace Amusements IAAPA booth. But Ace Amusements was not at Amusement Expo, and so if you wanted to find some of their games, you went over to Amusement Source. Hopefully that wasn't confusing. But this is Rooster and Bro 2DX. Let's see, there were some Redemption games, but wandering over, they did have 3 Storm Racer 2 games. As I said, this is a game I wouldn't mind getting for my arcade, because I do enjoy this. I do have a video that I haven't posted yet where I did play this. I played through another level. There's a video I have for my IAAPA where I played through a level as well. But this is a very well done game. Graphics are great. I like how it plays and everything, and it's too bad they didn't have 4 of them. That'd be fun to do that. It's also too bad that they didn't bring Storm Rider X, as that is a motorcycle game in the same sort of cabinet. But been hearing about that one and been wanting to give it a try, but just haven't seen it yet. But that is also available in North America through Amusement Source International. Sorry. Here's the game I mentioned in IAAPA, Wild Hunting. That's through Ace Amusements, which is a Big Buck Hunter style game. Here's a new fishing game, where this crossbow fishing game, I have video of this on my channel. I was very surprised by the graphics on this one. For a game that's probably made more for kids, it's surprising. It had some surprising depth to it. Although I didn't play it a whole lot. I guess more it's the flash that it has on it, which is surprising, which was also better than this Fortune Zombie game where you're just shooting these guys, try to win tickets, that sort of stuff. But Amusement Source International does have a lot more stuff that they offer to the market than what they brought to the show. But that is one thing that I've come to expect. Anytime I go to a show that has Amusement Source, I always expect to have some new stuff there, as well as quite a variety of games. And so, yeah. Jason, to your question on Raw Thrills, I mean, it's same as what was on the post. If there was anything new from Raw Thrills, we'll definitely have it on our blog amongst the first. We may not always be the first ones to exclusively break a story, but over the years we have been the exclusive source for a lot of news. Like H2 Overdrive was a game that we revealed to the market first, but yeah, we haven't heard of anything else yet, and might be a little while before we do. And I guess kind of along those lines, Bandai Namco, I already spoke a bit about Mario Kart Arcade GP DX, which, funny enough, the demand on that game is so high just because of its name. They haven't brought it to a show in years. They haven't even needed to be able to still get hundreds or thousands of sales on that game. But oddly enough, I don't know, maybe it's due to the algorithm, this video here of doing the booth tour is the most watched video I've posted from Amusement Expo to this point. I kind of wonder if it's people hoping to see Resident Evil 2 Arcade. But as I have pointed out, from when we first heard about that last year, when it was seen on test in London or the UK somewhere, when I reached out to Bandai Namco for comment, they told me that it would be late 2026. Or there always could be a delay and it could end up being into 2027. And so when it comes to trade shows like these, usually the manufacturers are focused on stuff that's going to be available very soon. So that way, if an interested operator goes to the show and wants to buy it, then it's like, well, maybe the game won't be out for a month or two, but you can still place your order. with your distributor or whatever. Or you could buy it off the right from the booth if it's ready to go. And so that's why you usually don't see games that are going to be months out from production. And so, no, Resident Evil 2 Arcade was not there. Another thing to point out that's been getting some attention is this. This is, I guess the zooming on X is not going to let me do that there. But Wing and Midnight Maximum Tune Ignition, which had been known as Speed Ignition, but now is called Ignition. This is coming out very soon from Bandai Namco. Now, I have not been able to confirm yet if this version is going to be released into the West. Now, years ago, before 2020 and everything, I was told that Maximum Tune 7 was intended to be a worldwide release, but a lot can change in that time, and it's possible that Namco's changed their minds on it. I hope not, but in the event that this does come out west, because like I do have a Maximum Tune 5 sitting right there. If what is Maximum Tune 7 without the number 7 in it does come west, we'll be sure to let you know. But if it does come out, my guess would be we would see it at IAAPA 2026. So that could make for a very cool IAAPA where you have both Resident Evil 2 Arcade and Maximum Tune Ignition there. But still a bit early to know for sure. Oops, behind the scenes there. Belmont, to your question there. So it's kind of weird. I don't really understand why they have it like this, but according the official statement from Bandai Namco is that this is not a sequel to Dead Storm Pirates, but it's in the same universe. So I don't really understand why you wouldn't just call it a sequel. I don't know why, but in my personal opinion it is, but I guess you got to go by how the company canonizes it, right? So same universe, but technically its own thing. But it plays just like Dead Storm Pirates does. It looks really nice, modern graphics. As usual, my favorite parts of it are the cannons, where you get to fire a cannon shot at ships and enemies and stuff. But yeah, you could call it a spiritual sequel, I guess. But yeah, and as Ted points out, even on their own website, there's some contradictions there. So I don't know. Maybe one day the producer of the game can speak to it and say yay or nay as to where it lands on that. I guess I should zoom in here. One thing that was missing from the Amusement Expo booth was a Chinese-made game called The Future. It was also missing at EAG. I didn't get a chance to ask about that, but the assumption is they're not going to go with it, and then instead they're going to focus on this game here called Mini World, which is essentially a Minecraft-style game that's popular in China, but they've turned it into a light gun game. But one of my favorites that was at IAAPA as well as Amusement Expo, although I did not get a chance to play this at Amusement Expo, would be Speed Rider 40X. So if you're looking for a cutting-edge motorcycle racing game, this definitely fits that bill. I can't remember the cost on it, if it was $28,000 or $32,000 or somewhere in between those. But it does come as this twin unit, so you get two units as one cabinet. But the coolest thing about this is when you're racing and you want to drift, you pull on the brake handle and it'll actually unlock the bike controller itself, and you can slide the back. And so it not only has the swivel, it also has a motion base, but then it has this drift sliding technique that you unlock there. And it's really, really cool. The only thing that I have a little bit of hesitancy about is, as an operator, is it's like, what's that going to be like 10 years down the road after it's been thrashed by people? Will it be easy to repair if that breaks? But actually, that is a game, too, that I would be interested in. It's like, would I go with Storm Rider 2 or Speed Rider? I mean, at this point, probably Speed Rider, because I've actually played it. I haven't played Storm Rider to know. This is also a game that I still may get, Animal Kaiser Plus, which has been out for a little while now from them. Let's zoom ahead past their redemption stuff to Taiko no Tatsujin. And so I was told that this had the newest wiring harness that's resolved some of the problems that these units have had out there. I guess I should have gotten more footage of this being played, or I should have played it myself, but I guess I just ran out of time. But that's what Bandai Namco had. Again, nothing we hadn't seen before. But there is also a small possibility that they could have something at what's called Bull Expo, as they have unveiled new stuff at Bull Expo before. I kind of hope not, just because Bull Expo is very poorly attended, because whoever organizes it keeps deciding to put it almost right on top of the 4th of July. And especially this year, where it's the 250th anniversary of the United States of America, there's a lot of stuff that's going to be going on that it's like, I highly doubt that a lot of people are going to want to go to. I mean, maybe there will be people that want to go to Nashville. Maybe there's stuff that's happening in Nashville in addition to Bull Expo that you can go do for that. But yeah, and so yeah, we'll keep tabs on all that. Baytech Entertainment, the only new thing they had, I'm just going to kind of skip ahead here to save on my voice a little bit. They did have a single-player version of Icy Slush Rush. One interesting thing that they added to this is a thermal ticket printer. Now, I guess for some lore, Baytech Entertainment owns Skee-Ball. Skee-Ball is not a genre of game, it's actually a brand. Kind of like how iPads are a brand, but they're not the name of tablets. But years ago, Skee-Ball did do a thermal ticket printer on their games. So like if you had it in a bar, you could print it out and then take that to the desk and get like a free beer or something. And so with doing that on the Icy Slush Rush, if you have an FEC or even a gas station that has one, you could print out a free icy drink and get it that way. And so I think that increases the appeal of having that particular game in those venues. But that was the only new thing from Baytech. They also did have like this Goats and Ropes and their Nailed It redemption game, the Perfect Pump redemption game as well, that were at IAAPA. Now, for the moment you've all been waiting for, or at least some of you in chat, Exa-Arcadia. And so when I checked the stats, this actually had exploded in interest too. Like the booth tour video was a little bit behind the Bandai Namco video. Now, one thing I do regret, I talk about it in this video here, is these flyers. I didn't grab one. I got distracted and I ended up not grabbing these. And so I meant to. I still kind of like collecting flyers. And you don't come across flyers too often in this industry anymore because everybody just does everything online. I guess I should say Alan One also had some printed flyers or brochures as well. But most of the other companies that I came across didn't have them. Used to be that every single booth had one. But anyways, they had 2 new debuts at the booth, which we also had special posts about those. This one here, G.I. Joe, Wrath of Cobra, and then Avatar Legends, the fighting game, which is actually based on Avatar: The Last Airbender, but I was surprised. I was actually expecting Avatar to get most of the attention, both on the site and on the videos, but G.I. Joe ended up getting a lot more attention than Avatar did. And maybe it's just because it doesn't say The Last Airbender in it, and some people are conflating it with Avatar, the movies with the blue aliens and all that, and Unobtainium, which was such a dumb name. But anyways, I'm digressing. So G.I. Joe, as you can see here, they used the 4K remaster from the Blu-ray and put it into the attract mode there. I did feel bad for the Exa guys who had to sit there hearing that all the time because they had it kind of loud. But the game itself, which I think we show below here, where I played with Showtime for a little bit. It's a scrolling beat 'em up, handles up to 4 players. Yes, this can be put into a 2-player cabinet. You just have 2 players instead. And I think there's an option in the menu where you can tell it that it's a 2-player cabinet, so it's not showing spots to do 4 players. But this has been enhanced from the console version that it's based on. That console version basically had a lot of stuff in it that felt unfinished. But I also think part of it was just whoever developed that didn't truly understand beat 'em ups. And for an arcade, there's certain things that you want beat 'em up to do. It's like one of the things that Exa has fixed is how to pick up guys and throw them. I think previously you could only throw them if they were on the ground, but now you can like grab them and throw them. And they're also not bullet sponges. Like I have played the console version, and it's just like sometimes these guys take way too many hits to take out. It's like, sure, you don't need them to be fodder where they die when you sneeze on them, but you also don't need to take 10 minutes to beat one guy. So they're polishing it up. They've also found voice actors who are much closer to the original voice actors. Unfortunately, a lot of those people have passed away in recent years. And so that, like, the voices in the console game that you can get right now are not close to, or a lot of them aren't close to the original cartoon, whereas the Exa version is going to have much more authentic sounding voices and even more voiceovers than what the console version had. And so, and it also has, I think it was 2 new characters that are not present in the console version. So overall, this is kind of like Jitsu Squad featuring the Samurai Pizza Cats, which Exa also took a console version of that, totally fixed it up, made it much better as an arcade game, but also just made it much better as a game overall, added more content to it that's not present in the home versions. And while I won't say they will never release this version to home consoles, if they do, it's not going to be for a long time. As Exa, they understand the market. Arcade operators would not buy anything from them if they knew that certain things like this was going to be available on home for cheap, basically one-on-one with the arcade and the console release. But I mean, yes, they do have some games like that, like Avatar Legends, the fighting game. As far as I know, the content's not necessarily any different from the console versions. The input lag is a lot better on the Exa version, so it moves a lot faster. And also I think the graphics rendering is better on Avatar. But like at the end of the day, it'll have the same character roster as the console version. But also the Exa version will have all of the content available on the consoles, like all the DLC from across different versions, will all be present in the arcade version. But let me check the chat here. I haven't seen an official announcement on the Arc 1 being discontinued. I would say that, yeah, if it's not available on their site anymore, it might be available through a distributor too that has like stock. But I mean, everything that I've heard is that the market is interested in the Arc 32, the Japanese style. And so I do think that, or actually, Ben, Blake, you can send me a message. I think that I might, if you're looking for an Arc 1, I think I know where you can get one. But yeah, I think that their main focus from here on out is the Arc 32. Now, whether or not they plan on doing another Japanese style cabinet with a bigger monitor or anything like that, I have no idea. But yeah, it makes sense that you shift your focus to what the market wants. And that gets into these 2 types of games as well. You know, both of these are tied to an IP. When Exa first started, I mean, yeah, they did pick up some stuff that, you know, like the Exa label stuff, which is remastering a 90s game, but it wasn't like, say, a major IP that people across generations would know. It might be something like a millennial would know or a Gen Xer would know, but a kid from right now wouldn't know that. You know, like that's kind of the problem with Atari is, you know, older guys like me, we know what Atari is because we played it growing up, but kids, they have no idea what Asteroids or Missile Command or Breakout is. You know, maybe they've seen games like it before, but they've never paid attention to something like that. Or they're not like, ooh, I need to see the latest Asteroids. Whereas something like this, you know, Avatar, it is another one of those things which it's been around for a while, and now even though I haven't watched the series, I mean I do watch some anime. Like recently watched through all of Spy Family and watched Freren, which is a cool fantasy based anime. Dr. Stone, and stuff, but just never watched Avatar or Hunter x Hunter Nan Impact, which I found out after the show. So they did have Hunter x Hunter Nan Impact at the show here. I think that was in the booth video. Let's see. Was that here? Yeah. Oops. Apparently this had an extra character in it that I wasn't aware of. Now, I did do some filming of some extra Exa games, but when my battery died for my camera, and so I was using my phone camera. But as I explained, I was very low on space on both my laptop, on my SD cards, and I had another spare SD card that had a bunch of space on it. I transferred my phone videos off of that so that I could film more in case for when my battery would run out again. But in the morning when I checked, all those files just disappeared. And so like I did play through Baki Hamna here. I sucked at it, but that was one of the videos that I lost. And so yeah. But overall, yeah, would I expect to see more ARC 32 cabinets out there from here on out? Yeah, that'll probably be a lot easier to find at the end of the day compared to the ARC 1. Like, I do have an ARC 1 here, but would I like to get some ARC 32s? Yeah, absolutely. Now, as I posted on both X and YouTube, if you hadn't seen this, so those cabinets that were at Amusement Expo did get picked up by Round 1 USA. And in fact, I was told that they weren't going to go to Amusement Expo until Exa told them that they were going to be debuting Avatar and G.I. Joe there, and Avatar really piqued their interest. And so they actually grabbed at least 2 cabinets for the location in Burbank, California. And then the Hunter x Hunter Nen Impact cabinet went to the Main Place Mall location in Santa Ana, California. And so now this does not necessarily mean that every Round 1 USA is getting an ARC 32, but it does show that they have interest there. And as I said in the videos, for those who are interested in Exa, be paying close attention to our coverage that's coming with Evo Japan, I think at the beginning of May. There are going to be some major announcements. I know what some of it is, but I'm not allowed to say what it is yet. But there are some games coming, IP that everybody knows, that also does go across generations. There's going to be some new partnership announcements, which I think are going to surprise some people as well as seeing some content from some previously announced partners as well. And so very, very exciting things coming to the Exa-Arcadia later this year. And I think with some of these IP, this might be what helps get companies like Round 1 USA, maybe even Dave & Buster's, very interested. And they've also told me about something that's coming to IAAPA that I think is going to turn heads. I haven't seen much about it. But just from what I know of the concept, it's like, wow, it's very different from what you see on the screen right here and from other stuff that we've touched on with Exa. But gotta wait. Can't expose what that is yet. But just keep in mind, we will be covering this stuff, but also Exa is taking strides to make sure that they get a larger market penetration. I mean, every single arcade company wants to sell their stuff. They want to see their game in every place. Now, yes, there are some companies out there where I can't understand why they do what they do, where their marketing really sucks and it almost seems like they don't want to sell their stuff. But ultimately, at the end of the day, all these games cost hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to develop. Like Eugene Jarvis has said many times with Raw Thrills games, like I know Jurassic Park cost something around $4 million just to develop the game. That doesn't include production and all that other stuff, which is an extra few $1 million, if not several $1 million. And Godzilla Kaiju Wars, that cost something like $10 million. Now, granted, inflation is the big reason why that costs so much. Now, do the Exa-Arcadia games necessarily cost that much? I don't think so. I've never been told how much they spend on the development. But still, when you have somebody spending this kind of money to make a game, they don't want it to just show up in a few places. They don't want it to show up in just a few rich collectors' houses. They want it to get out everywhere. But, you know, what the market wants, it can vary a lot. And really what the modern arcade market really wants, which often means what you players want, are licensed IP. You want something recognizable. Most of the time, if you go into an arcade and you see a name that you've never heard of before, you won't put money into it. But you will put money into something that you're familiar with, that you're comfortable with, like, say, Street Fighter 2. And so that is something where they are leaning a little bit more into the IP licensing sort of stuff. And so you can continue to expect that from them. Excuse me. But yeah, so I know there is a lot of interest in seeing Exa stuff get out there. I've seen some of that with the Alan One guys as well, because in both instances, these are companies that are tackling genres which are a bit more hard for the hardcore gamer and not really for the child or the casual gamer who just wants to come in and brainlessly pull a lever and win 1 billion tickets. You know, this is stuff that requires skill, and I think for most of you, in at least in the chat, that's the types of games that you like playing as well. They're the types of games I like playing. But again, when you're running a business like I am, you can't always put in stuff that you want because it doesn't always make money. You oftentimes have to put in, well, you do need to put in stuff that makes the money if you want to keep your doors open. And so that's why some of this stuff happens the way that it does. But got any other questions on Exa before we move on? And let me catch up a little bit on the chat here. Yeah, I mean, hopefully in every major city there'll be an Exa-Arcadia soon. But I guess one thing to also note is there's a site called Arcade Belgium. It's Arcade Belgium, all one word, no spaces, no dashes, .be. It's run by a great guy named Xavier. Let's see if I can put this in the chat. There we go. So if you go to that website, over on the left-hand side near the top, it'll say Exa-Arcadia. You click on that, it takes you to a map that shows per user input where you can find Exa-Arcadia games and cabinets all across the planet. And so there's probably quite a few more there than you might realize. And so there's a lot in North America. There's a lot in Japan. There's some in Europe as well. And so, yeah, if you're really interested in Exa and finding one near you, you can use that map, and then maybe there is one near you that you didn't know about. But also, let's say there isn't. There's no harm if there's an arcade near you and they have something like a fighting game or a shoot-'em-up game or something like that as a part of their collection. You could always bring this up to them. Be like, hey, have you ever heard of the Exa-Arcadia or the Alan One games? Do you guys want to maybe get one of those? And doesn't necessarily mean that they will just because a person asks. Obviously, what matters to most operators are the earnings. You know, if a game makes a lot of money, then that's the sort of thing that we want to buy. So, I mean, if you do have a location near you and you're like, hey, would you guys get an Exa? You should also put some money into their shoot-'em-up games or their fighting games, because if they see that stuff going up, then they'll be more inclined to be purchasing one of those as opposed to, let me get another, let me get a 20th Big Bass Will or whatever it is, or another boxing machine. So yeah, that covers Exa-Arcadia. Jet Games USA. So, sorry. At IAAPA, they had a very big surprise. Well, two surprises. They had their GigaShot game, and they had G.I. Joe. It's now called Big Cannon. At the show, it was just called G.I. Joe. But surprisingly, at Amusement Expo, they had GigaShot because that's available now, and that's what you can see on the screen here. But there was no G.I. Joe to be seen. I asked about it. They said that they were working hard on it to make sure that it was more like, or that the elements in the game actually match with what you would expect out of G.I. Joe, because what was available at IAAPA the game software itself had nothing to do with G.I. Joe. It was just the artwork on the machine. But that's because when they got the G.I. Joe license, it was pretty much right before the show. There was no time to develop a game based on that. And you don't want to count your chicks before they hatch, as the saying goes. You shouldn't start developing a game before you have the license. That's just stupid. And that's actually sunk some companies. A few of you might remember a couple of years back, there was a company that's now defunct, and I think it's because of what they did with this, is they announced this RoboCop VR game, and they didn't finish getting the license for that when they announced it, and I think that caused them to get sued, and they went out of business shortly thereafter. So that's where what we saw at IAAPA, that would be the reason why it wasn't there. But originally they were saying it was going to come out in May this year, but now it's been pushed back to possibly July. Now, one brand new thing that they did have was this World Football Frenzy. Football is what it's called in most of the planet. Here in the States, we call it soccer. But where I lived in Brazil, it's futebol. And I was in Brazil when they won their last World Cup. And that was crazy. I have never seen a party like Brazilians winning the World Cup. It was just like 48 hours straight of people partying and like honking their horns and setting off fireworks. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen. But yeah, popular sport around the world. Surprisingly, we don't see a ton of games based on that. But this is a video game, obviously made for tickets, so we would classify it as a redemption game. But you can choose between multiple mini games, and then you literally use the soccer ball or the football as the controller. So kind of cool there. Hey, how's it going?
I just have had a lot of calls and a lot of texts regarding whether or not we're open on Easter Sunday.
Oh, we are closed?
We are closed.
Oh, okay, good.
And that ends.
That's great to know, because yeah, I did miss the meeting, unfortunately, so I kept meaning to ask.
They went over it in the meeting.
Oh, really?
Well, maybe they did. And that's why I've got half the population.
I gotcha.
sort of asking if whether or not they're
Cool, gotcha. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. We'll see ya. Oh, good to know that my arcade is closed on Easter because the mall is closed. Here's an interesting one that I was just on the camera there was the Cyber Punch, which is a boxing machine with a camera, and video screen and stuff. Stuff like that's getting popular because I've seen some locations where boxing machines are making more money than all the redemption in video games. And it's crazy how much money they make. But it makes sense because it's such a fast game and people love to show off their strength. But here was another new one. I didn't mean to get more details. I'll have to text Robert about this one, but it's kind of like an air hockey / pinball sort of thing where you pull on those and you hit the balls back and forth. I used to own a game like this that came from a Brazilian company. This looks nicer. It's a lot smaller too, called Tip Off. But yeah, I need to text them and find out more details because I didn't talk to them much about it at the show. But that's what Jet Games USA had. Again, when we find out more about G.I. Joe, which they told me that would likely debut at Bowl Expo, which is the beginning of July, we'll be happy to share it. Next up, LAI Games. Sorry, I'm just going to need to speed through some of this stuff that doesn't have anything new. I didn't get a chance to play Phantom Vanguard, which I wanted to at the show, but if you hadn't seen this, like, this was something that I noticed when I was watching editing this, was the destructible environments. I hadn't really noticed that as much when I was playing this at IAAPA, but it's like, that's a nice touch, because like, I loved Crisis Zone by Namco. I played the snot out of that game. I think the fastest I ever beat it was 12 minutes and something seconds, but I played it a lot at the arcade I worked at. And that was one thing I loved about Crisis Zone, was like just shooting the glass and watching it shatter in the patterns and stuff like that. So I love destructible environments, and so it's not present in a lot of games for whatever reason, but it is present in Phantom Vanguard. There was also the Kaiju Rampage. I guess when it comes to games that I would get if I had money, Phantom Vanguard would be on that list. Not sure about Cyberpunk Turf Wars. I mean, maybe. It's a huge game, though. Takes up a lot of space. But I personally do like the innovation behind this one, where it's a shooting gallery game, pops up with targets, all projection mapping and stuff. I do understand that a lot of fans weren't particularly happy with that it didn't have a lot of cyberpunk content in it. Although one thing to point out is the production version of it did actually have a lot of that, whereas the version we saw a year ago at Amusement Expo was lacking a lot of those cyberpunk world elements. Let me jump ahead. I do have a video where somebody asked for me to play more of this Ubisoft All-Star VR game. I only played one level though. To be honest, my face hurt a little bit after I put the strap on too tight, I think, with that, but I was also just a little pressed for time, so I didn't play through all 3 levels, but I will post more of that. But yeah, LAI didn't have anything new that we hadn't seen before. Sega Amusements is almost in that same booth as well, where they had their Putt-It Party, their 2-player on target thing. The Putt-It Party, actually this hasn't begun shipping yet. I think this is shipping out next month, which is actually tomorrow. And same with Simon Arcade. This was the new one that they had, a new redemption piece, Tower Ball. But technically new was the update to MyDX with the Circle update. So this does come with new artwork and new songs, things of that nature. But it was at the show. And this is, I believe, already available to locations that have a MyDX and paid their $2,000 to get the update. I did post a full video of this separately, which actually is right here. If you're really wanting to see that. But yeah, always nice to see that support there. But most everything else that Sega had at their booth, we've seen before, like Apex Rebels. They had an older version of the Alpha Ops VR Strike. On this one, we've been trying to get an answer on it. Interestingly enough, I did see a video today on Instagram from Indie Arcade Wave where they were showing a game room and it had this in it, the Daytona Motion Edition, and it was this exact model with this artwork. Now, maybe it was just the location got this version from Amusement Expo and put it in there. I don't know for sure, but I'm hoping that this isn't the final artwork, because in my humble opinion, this is not as good as what we saw at IAAPA. At IAAPA, it had much more colorful artwork, and so that's what I'd like to see for the final release. But I don't know. I did email Sega about it, but I haven't gotten an answer on that. But in case you had missed this one, there is more video of this on my channel, and it is the Daytona Championship USA New Season Edition software in a new cabinet with a motion base. Stern Pinball, I was very happy to see that they had Pokemon there. Sometimes in the past, Stern has announced a new game and then they don't bring it to Amusement Expo for some reason. So I'm very, very happy that they actually did fill up their booth with more Pokemon than their other games. And so this gave me a chance to play it. I found it to be fun. As I've said before, I think it's a brilliant IP. It gets in that same discussion we talked about earlier, where it's not only an IP that bridges the gap between several generations, it's also an IP that hasn't shot itself in the foot. You know, it's like that is a problem with IP like Star Wars and Star Trek and Doctor Who and to some degree Marvel, where these brands had been at one point in their history is they're no longer making as much money as they did because of different creative decisions, different shows that change things about the canon or the lore of the characters that a lot of the older fans really liked, and they don't like the new stuff. And so I mean, and I've seen it. I've told this story before. I used to have a Star Wars battle pod from Bandai Namco, most expensive thing that I've ever bought, and other than a house, and or at least for my business, I should say. But literally, like a week after The Last Jedi came out, the game stopped earning really well, and it never made good money ever again. And that's why I ended up selling it, was because it couldn't make enough money to cover its own payments. Like up until that point, it was always making really good money, enough to cover its monthly payments, which were something like $600-700 a month. I can't remember exactly. But after that, it was making like $200-300 a month. And everything else that I had that was Star Wars, people just stopped playing it. So it was like The Last Jedi was so bad, at least, again, I know there are some people out there that like it, but I just say from the business perspective, it was bad enough that it caused a lot of fans to just reject everything Star Wars. So, and I say that as there's this new Star Wars thing on the screen here. Now, I was also critical of this because I don't understand why Stern went back to this IP when they've done like 2 or 3 other games in under 10 years. But the code on this one, from playing it, I do have to say, objectively, I think Fall of the Empire is a better game than the 2018 version of Star Wars. So I give it that. I just wish they would have covered another IP. You know, there's other sci-fi IP out there. Stargate, Babylon 5, whatever. Even The Last Starfighter will probably get some people playing it if it's a good game. But although that would be ironic if The Last Starfighter had a pinball machine before it had an official video game. But there was The Walking Dead Remastered, and then, like I said, Pokemon. And now, with Pokemon, the one thing the problem I had with it that is also a problem that I kind of just alluded to on Star Wars is one thing I hate that Stern Pinball does. I don't know if anybody from Stern's watching this or will watch this, but I really hate that you guys keep putting out games with unfinished code. And to me, it's a little bit disrespectful to a customer who's paying thousands of dollars for it. Because I know in the past this has happened where a game doesn't sell very well and then they just don't finish the code because, like, well, it didn't sell well. But it's like, well, maybe it would have sold better if you actually finished the code first and then put it out there. Now, I'm sure there's some financial reasoning behind doing that, but it seems to me, because it happens every single time with every single game, it doesn't feel like that. It feels like it's just baked into the culture of development, and a little bit of it comes from, well, we got the internet now, so we can just fix things. But I always hate playing a game and getting that first impression and having that tainted by bad code and unfinished code. By things. Now, again, I didn't find Pokemon to be a bad experience, but I did have some other people pointing out, it's like, hey, I noticed it said this thing, but then when I made that shot, it didn't do anything. And it's like that, again, taints your experience, and that sticks with you. Now, it can be overcome. It's like, I didn't really care for Star Wars Fall of the Empire when I first played it, and then the later code that I played here at the show, I did come away with a stronger impression, but I've seen many times, I've had games, like I had a game called Sky Cursor, where it was a scrolling shoot 'em up, and I had a very, very early version. It was basically an alpha version of the game. And a lot of people came in and played that alpha version, didn't like it, but when I got a beta version or the near complete version of the game that played much better, had a lot more features to it, I tried to get people to play it, and they wouldn't come and play it because they'd already had their opinions tainted by that earlier version. Now, sure, you can maybe argue that, well, that's video games. People are more forgiving with pinball. But I don't think we should accept that sort of thing. I think we should demand that code be, sure, you might still have some bugs or whatever, but to me, it's like if you have your features planned out, which I know they do go through months of planning on this and the rule sets and all that stuff, that should be implemented when you start hitting production and not some months later, or in the case of many pinball machines, it's like over a year after the game's been released that they start rolling out some major features. And to me, that just, again, that leaves a bad taste in the mouth. I wish we would stop doing that as an industry. I do think that there are some pinball companies like Jersey Jack which are better on that, but somebody who's more of an expert on pinball will have to fill me in on that. Anyway, sorry, I rant too much about pinball sometimes. I just want to see it succeed. It's frustrating when there's things like that happen. Anyways, moving on. Triotech. They made a surprise. We didn't include this in our preview because they announced it like right about the time I was leaving for the show. But Typhoon, which is a name that's very well known in the industry, particularly it started off with the Mad Wave Motion Theater, and then there was the Typhoon, and then there was the Typhoon 10th Anniversary Edition. Now there's this, where it's just bigger, badder, new ride films. It's not interactive, but funny enough, these Typhoons make tons of money. The original Typhoon itself did extremely well. It's oftentimes the #1 game in a game room. Now, I didn't hear the same thing about the 10th anniversary edition, which came with a 4K screen, same kind of cabinet, just different color. But this version, you got the 2 screens and the moving seats. It's just, there was a problem with this one, and I think it was just because it was a prototype, not completely finished yet. And this is one of the things that I talked with Ernest Yell, the CEO of Triotech. He said it would be changed. The headrest did not have soft padding. So there's moments here where it's kind of thrashing you around and you're hitting this hard headrest. I was actually filming another guy who I could tell he was visibly upset because he kept grabbing his head, and he eventually got so angry because it kept smacking him in the back of the head that he got up and left. And he was a very unhappy guy. But that would be my main criticism to it. Another weird thing, I don't know, I needed to ask about this, if this was just due to a prototype thing or just for the show, but it'll be fixed in the full production. But the odd thing about it was, well, it kind of bugged me having a seam there, because it's like with the seam, it automatically forces my eyes down to the more comfortable screen, which would be the bottom screen where most of the action's happening anyways. But they did this odd thing of putting the top screen a few inches or an inch forward, and I could notice that. And I try not to let it bug me. I try to just pay attention to the ride film, but it did bug me a little bit. And so it's like, hopefully they can get that fixed so that it reduces the amount of the seam and also is flush with the cabinet. Because at least in the cabinet renders, it's all flush. But again, this might have just been a prototype sort of thing going on, and that's why it did it. But graphically, as always, Triotech always is pulling off fantastic graphics in all their stuff. Very vibrant color, very well designed objects and stuff. Obviously, this is a King Kong type situation going on there without being King Kong. But if you're into ride film type equipment, this is probably going to be a big hit. I don't know what the price is on it, though. All right, we're almost done here, and I got to finish soon anyways. UNIS. So UNIS, they were actually supposed to have more games at the show, as we said in our preview, than actually showed up. The reason why is they had a container full of games that was held up in California at the docks. And so that would have included stuff like their new Ski Hero game and a couple of other things. But they still designed their booth in a way without that where it almost wasn't apparent that they were supposed to have more stuff. And so they did a good job at hiding that fact. It's like you probably wouldn't have even known if they hadn't announced the Ski Hero in advance. But anyways, the two main things that they brought here were Pickleball Rivals and Cyberpunk 2077 Chrome Rush. Now, interestingly enough, there's actually been quite a few inquiries I've been hearing that have been going into distributors about this Pickleball Rivals. I'm kind of surprised it's taken this long, because for the past 3-4 years, pickleball has been stated to be like one of the fastest growing sports in the US. I don't really know why. I've never played pickleball, so I don't really understand why it's more popular than tennis or table tennis or whatever. But this is the first arcade video game to actually employ pickleball. Now, I would say that I was expecting the paddle to be more like Wii Remote Plus or Wii U style, like whereas more mapped to your physical location, where it was actually more like an earlier Wii game where it wasn't like that. You don't have to move your character. There's no joystick, so you don't have to worry about that. It's just about timing your swings, and all you have to do is swing it. It doesn't matter which direction you swing it in. It'll just automatically move your character to hit the ball. And so probably fine to do that, because I imagine a lot of casuals will be going after that one. But it does come in that twin cabinet with the two units linked together, as does Cyberpunk 2077 Chrome Rush. Now, as that sign does also say, it is a prototype. I was told that there would be changes made to the cabinet, but I was very surprised by the amount of detail put into the cabinet. And so it's like they intentionally put these like dirt marks into the artwork to make it fit in with the universe. It also has like these things you can kind of see here, like around the subwoofer. There's like superfluous things that are added to the cabinet that are just to make it fill in universe that don't actually do anything for the game. But I actually do appreciate that, unless it's adding like $2,000 to the cabinet. Then it's like, okay, maybe I'll take one that's just printed art. But still, it's like it's a nice touch to see that sort of love and detail going into the cabinet. And I think that's from what Steven at UNIS told me, that came from CD Projekt, where they wanted those sorts of details baked into the cabinet, so to speak. But they did tell me that they were going to redesign the motorbike a little bit, like you were going to be leaning forward a little bit more. But yeah, here's some of those pointless details, but nice to still see. Now, I do have more video of Cyberpunk that I'm going to post. I think there's just at least one, maybe two more videos that I have of it. But this will be at the Level Up event in Las Vegas here this next month. I do need to see about maybe going down there because Steven told me that would be essentially the official launch event. So that might be a good reason to go back down to Vegas. At least for me, it's a quick flight. So, yeah, but I love the wind effects on this. The only things I would say that needed to be corrected on this, and again, where it's a prototype, there's still room for improvement, and they were asking me a little bit about that. I just needed to share it with them directly. But when you're in the menu to select your bikes, one criticism I have is, like, see how it takes it a moment to pull up with the stats? It's like you only have 20 seconds or so or less to pick your bike, and so it's like in my opinion, that should pop up fast. You know, it's not a major thing. Excuse me, but I think that would help, just because we want to see which bike's the best without feeling pressured to just pick something. Now, one thing that I didn't notice in my first few plays of this is that there is a boost meter. See right here. I don't know how well you can see that, but it says like perfect right there. So you want to rev your engine to be right within the perfect realm. And then when it hits, the timer hits 0, then it'll give you a boost and you fly off. But my only other criticism is that when you push the attack button, there is a very slight moment of lag there. They need to speed that up so that when you're pushing the button, it's instantly doing that attack. And so if they can do that, maybe add a few other NPCs. Like there's a moment that you'll see here when some NPC racers jump onto the track. They'll have a little red skull above them. But if you actually take them out, then it gives you a gun temporarily, and you can use that to shoot at your opponents. Oh yeah, also, as I mentioned in the text, I think it would be a nice touch to at least have a very quick story to explain why it is that you're racing. Because as it is, you're just racing, and so it's like I have no idea why I'm attacking people here, or to somebody who doesn't know going in, they may not realize that you can attack because there's no explanation as to it, and so that some people I could see just jumping on and racing, and then they're getting beat up and they don't really understand why. So if it could at least provide some quick context to that, I think that would be good. But overall, I did enjoy this. I liked how long the races were. I liked stuff like that, being able to take out the other cars. There's shortcuts on the tracks. The tracks are a lot longer than I expected. I do apologize that there's so much reflection in the glass here. So like, I know one of the videos that I did it from an angle where there was a lot less reflection. I think it was this same track. But yeah, so we'll have more on this. Yeah, and hopefully it will be showing up at other expos soon. I'm trying to remember. I think they said June might be when this is going to be. Like initially they were saying April, and then in May, and then June. So kind of a little bit in flux there. But definitely this summer is when you could start seeing this show up out there. I've also seen slightly different pricing. I've seen between, I think it was 27 to 29,000. It is under 30,000, which I know for a lot of people you'll hear that as like, are you crazy? But as an example, Asphalt Moto Blitz, which is available through LAI Games, which is also in a twin style cabinet that looks a lot like Speed Rider 40X, those are like 32,000. So in that regard, this is cheaper and it has a bigger name attached to it. But yeah, overall, initially I had said that it reminded me of Road Rash, but I guess at the end of the day, it's more like Sega's Motor Raid. Funny enough, I brought this up to a sales guy at ELOT, and he knew. He's like, "Oh yeah, Motor Raid, that's cool. I used to sell those." And I was like, "Oh, didn't realize that you would know that." But yeah, so some people in this industry do know their stuff. Sorry, my cough is... I don't know what video is supposed to be there. I think it was another Cyberpunk video, but it looks like it's not rendering in the post. But that was basically UNIS. They also had their Monster Kart game, which I have heard that has done well. And again, I think that comes down to Mario Kart fumbling the ball there on its production. And so a lot of its locations don't necessarily care about the name. They just want something like it, and so they'll go for games like it, and it'll make them money. Okay, so there were some others. Like I said, I did lose some videos. Like I did shoot a video of the ice booth. They didn't have anything new though. Like they did have a reskin of their soccer football game, which was weird. I don't know why they didn't have something completely new there, but at the very least, this guy, he said he had sold Motor Raids, and like he was familiar with the game, and he didn't seem like the type that would be playing Yakuza. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe he did. Maybe he did, but he's been around the industry for a while, so it's always nice when you come across somebody where you don't expect that they really know their stuff, but it's like they do. So that's always nice. Another thing that I did take a look at was the Zombie Snatcher Outbreak. It's not really a kind of game that we cover on Arcade Heroes, but they did ask me to stop by and check it out. There'll be some footage that I sent to Primetime Amusements about that game coming along soon. I'm not sure when it'll be released, but if you're familiar with Zombie Snatcher, the Outbreak version just has really cool pucks. Like, I have to admit, that's cool tech with putting micro LEDs onto the pucks themselves, so every puck has a display on it. That's cool. And some other bonus things built into it. This one was a little surprised. This was almost at the end of the show, and I was just wandering around seeing if there's anything else I could film, and came across the creator of the Jet Pong games for Valley Dynamo, explaining to some potential buyers what this was, and so I started filming. And so, for those who know their arcade lore and their arcade history, you would know that way back in the 1960s, Sega actually created something very similar to this. I think on the inside it was all fiberglass instead of wood, and it had more targets. But it would allow you to push a button, and it would blast a jet of air, and it would send the basketball flying. And your goal is to play a very short version of basketball. But here it's different, where it has the colored holes, and you can control the power of the blast using the lever there. But yeah, you just had to make as many points in your opponent's goal as you can. There's also a block feature, and so like when you shoot at the opponent's goal, or the opponent shoots at your goal, you could use the block feature. If you time it right, it would actually blow the ball out of the hoop. So pretty cool sort of thing. A little bit different. For me, I always like electromechanical games if they can be adapted as non-redemption games, because it's like this is something you can't really get at home unless you're an engineer. And yeah, sure, there are those out there, but not everybody is. I did come across Rylix's Rush VR game, which I did see this at IAAPA, but I kind of caught it on the last day or the second to last day, and I made a mental note, I need to go back and check it out, because when I came across it, it was surrounded by people, and so I was recording a little bit, but it wasn't very good. And but then I just forgot, or I got sidetracked, because there was a lot of things I missed at IAAPA last year. And IAAPA this year I might miss a lot, because they're doing something weird with they're putting a lot of exhibitors in a different hall, and the way that they've organized the show so far is really seems to be hodgepodge. It's like there's a lot of exhibitors that have nothing to do with each other right next to each other, and I don't get why they do that. But anyways, Rylix's Rush VR, this is available now. They've redesigned levels to work with this mounted gun. Now, with the regular Rylix ones, they are actually interactive. Like, you can see on the VR headset that it has these cameras. And so on the regular Rylix, you can use your fingers like this and actually, like, pop bubbles or shoot things. But I don't think a lot of people realize that. And, like, it even works like that on the SpongeBob Bubble Coaster, I believe, that Andamero has. But this way, it makes it so that there's, it's very clear that you just grab the gun, point, and shoot. And there you go. So it works. So this is the only level I played. This was actually the last thing I filmed at Amusement Expo, and right after this, I needed to go catch my flight. But like I said, I only spent like 10, maybe 15 minutes in security. I didn't have to sit there for 5 hours or anything, so it wasn't as bad as I thought. But yeah, it's too bad. I wish I could have found a flight that would have left maybe a few hours later so I could have finished out the show, because I had to leave like 2 hours before the show was over. But you can see, like, not very super busy as far as attendance went there, especially on day 2. But yeah, this is an affordable version of VR. It's like, instead of it being in the $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 range, these are around 20 something. So that's always a nice touch. You can also link 2 of these together to have up to 4 players per game. So that's also another nice touch. This has been done by a Brazilian company. I got to use a little bit of my Portuguese while I was there. I think that threw them off a little bit. I probably should have just used English, as they spoke English just fine too. But I like to use my Portuguese when I can, since I don't get very many opportunities. Then there was this one. It's like, would I have this in my location? Well, it would not fit into this location. I mean, it might fit into the mall, but even then, that maybe not. But the flying theater. Sorry, I didn't have video footage of this one in the seat. That was something filmed with my phone. Very cool, very immersive experience. Funny enough, DOF Robotics in the past, they had been using a lot of VR, but they eschewed that for this, and instead, at first I thought that they were projection mapping onto the dome, but you can see this in the video. You can see the little lines. These were actually little LED panels. And then the graphics on the ride were very, very well done, very cinematic. But funny enough, it was like their version of retelling Star Wars: A New Hope. But just without the Star Wars IP. But it's like you can see running through the trenches, but also like some of the statements of what the pilots say are very similar to Star Wars and things of that nature. And so, like, they blended elements there. Very clever. I personally would kind of like an interactive game, maybe like Konami's what was that, Solar Assault, I think. With these types of graphics, maybe in this universe here, and just flying through and blasting things. For nerdy arcade lore that is completely pointless, did you know that Bandai Namco was making a Star Fox arcade game back in 2003? Apparently got canceled because they couldn't get the frame rate right. It was weird to me. It's like, why not just optimize your code better, or do that plus throw in more powerful hardware? I don't know. But anyways, this was very cool. They called this the compact flying theater because normal flying theaters are enormous. They're like IMAX size or larger rooms and can hold up to like 200 people or something like that. And so when you have only 4 people and you don't need a room that big, you can call it compact. And so, yeah, sure, this will not fit into a lot of FECs. It's like even a lot of Dave & Buster's I don't think could fit this sort of thing in them. But I did appreciate that DOF brought this to the show. Usually they don't come to Amusement Expo, but they showed this off, and it's like there are theme parks, smaller theme parks, like local ones. Like here in Utah, we have one called Lagoon. They're basically the only theme park in Utah, and we don't have any like Six Flags or Knott's Berry Farm or anything like that. But, you know, some of those theme parks could have something like this. Or there are some large FECs out there. It's like Andretti's might be able to handle one of these things inside of them. or what's another one, like Scene 75. I could see doing that. Oh yeah, another video that I do need to figure out. I didn't get video, or I think I might have lost it, of the Perfect Pour Pabst Blue Ribbon Edition. Sorry to Dan about that. Great game though. If you have an arcade bar, get that game. It will do very well for you. It'll do a lot better than all your classics. It'll do better than your Tapper will. Incredible Technologies, I do have footage of that. I just need to edit it still, but it's of Silver Strike League Night. And so that's actually coming out, I think, this next month in April. Coastal Amusements, I did walk by their booth a few times, but I think they were one of them that a lot of their product got held up in shipping because their booth was very empty. It's the emptiest I've ever seen their booth. Like, they had huge empty spaces inside of it. Usually they have one of the most cramped booths at any show. But because of that, if they were supposed to have something new, it must not have arrived, as everything else that they had there was not there. But that brings us to the close. Anybody got any questions? Thank you for those that are still around. Thank you for sticking with me on all this. Well, what was your favorite thing that was covered from Amusement Expo? I'm assuming most of you didn't go to the show. So out of our coverage, what interests you the most as to coming to arcades this summer? Oh yeah, I guess on the XR games, both G.I. Joe and Avatar, those are a summer release. They haven't stated when yet. I've actually been a little surprised. Usually Exa is releasing at least one game a month, and this year they haven't released anything new yet. But I think that's going to change here soonish. Or here soon. I shouldn't say soonish. But at least those two games are definitely coming for... they said summer. So it's going to be a very busy summer for arcades. I guess the question will just be what locations will be grabbing a lot of these games. It'll come down to the pricing on a lot of them. Again, I'll need to double check with Adrenaline to find out how much they're going to sell Disney Speedstorm for. But, yeah. Got anybody left in chat? Haven't seen any more comments, so if not, we'll just end it here. But my voice needs it anyways. I'm killing my voice. That was another reason why I didn't do this closer to the show, because I literally, like, a few hours after the show started, I started losing it. Day 2, it wasn't great either, and then for the next week or so, my voice really sucked. Well, glad you're still here, Ted. At least you are. But I know we've chatted about a lot of this stuff already. But yeah, if you don't mind sharing, what thing are you looking forward to the most? Cyberpunk? One of the Exa games? Mime IDX, which has still not been announced for Europe? I guess this would be a good place. Maybe nobody's watching, so it's not the best place to... maybe it's not the best place to be announcing this, but Konami will have a booth at IAAPA, unless something changes, but it's on the map right now. But it is over in that area where it's kind of the no man's land. Yeah, I mean, I guess, I know for those of you in Europe, you'd really like to see Mime IDX. I mean, I don't know what metrics it is that Sega needs to see to convince them to take it over there, but we'll have to wait and see, because by all accounts that I've heard, it's done extremely well here in the States, and it's starting to show up in places like Canada, and so perhaps that means it's making enough money to warrant doing all the licensing that they need to do for Europe, but I don't know. Yeah, so it's possible that the next live stream will be for Evo Japan 2026, which, now that we're practically on April 1st's door here, we're going to, yeah, like I said, we'll be doing a lot of coverage on Evo Japan. I mean, it's so significant. I would love to find a way to get over to Japan and attend Evo and cover the show from there. It's just, I don't have the money. I need to get it. Yeah, don't worry. Yeah, this as soon as I stop streaming, this will all be saved to YouTube and everything. And so, as far as I can tell, there were no glitches with the stream, so that's good and whatnot. But there also could be some very interesting things going on with Alan 1 that are coming later this year. but nothing that's publicly available yet. But they should be at a California Extreme, where I think they are hoping to have some additional Atari Recharged games. I have seen a build come across my desk for Black Widow. But that's one of those games where it's kind of hard to say if there will be a lot of changes made to it, just because it's all kind of arcadey already. Yes, the Exa announcements will be at EVO. So as far as I know, there won't be anything at EVO that isn't that's fits within our interest that isn't Exa related. So I mean, maybe Konami would announce something there, but it's like I highly doubt Sega or Taito or Capcom or any of those guys would be announcing anything at EVO Japan, just because it's very focused on fighting games. And so I guess that gives you a kind of a hint as to what to maybe expect out of Exa. But you know, it's like if they wanted to, they could always unveil something like Shoot 'em Up. Although, generally speaking, there's something called the Shoot 'em Up Fest, or Shooter Fest, I think, that happens over in Japan, which is a festival for shoot 'em ups, STGs as they call them over in Japan, shooting game. I haven't heard of Shooting Fest for 2026. In the past few years, that's been in April, and Exa has attended that and has unveiled some new shoot 'em up games there. But I need to look into that because they've only mentioned to me EVO. But again, EVO's going to have some major announcements, and so but it'll all be focused on Exa. But unless something happens here in the next couple of weeks where I'm able to find a way to get over to Japan, which is very unlikely, we'll still be covering it. We'll just be getting fed information from Exa themselves to get into that. But anyways, my voice is about dead. Thank you guys again for watching. Thank you again for supporting the site. Really do appreciate that. And stay tuned. Well, we actually should hopefully have a post about locations going out today. It's also almost April 1st. Sometimes some interesting things happen on April 1st. Who knows? But thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys next time.